Welcome to my talk about electronic invoicing and the implementation of that. During the last couple of years, we have been implementing a lot of electronic invoicings in Odoo, and we are always looking if there are things we can reuse, if there are best practices, and I will try to explain some of them to you. Don't forget to scan the QR code if you have any questions. I will do first something about just API calling, technically very low level, then more zoom out into user flow, and then again something technical, but also technical accounting, taxes, and then I will again broaden a bit the scope. For sending an invoice, something is important, and I want to make up a little story. Suppose tonight you stay at the party and you stay at the after party and you still go to a bar, so you're very exhausted, and you see the bartender, you make eye contact, and you say, 10 beers. But in the meantime, you are looking at someone else, an Odoo consultant with whom you had a lot of conversations and so on, and after some minutes you're asking, where are the beers? So you watch again, look again at the bartender and say, yeah, what? Give me those beers, those 10 beers. And you go to pay, and she says, yeah, you have to pay for 20 beers. And the same can happen in electronic invoicing. If you send an invoice twice to the government, they will could ask you for twice the money, or you have to go in the portal and remove. So you want that the information that you have in Odoo and the information that the government has, that it's synchronized, that it is the same. And a lot of APIs you can do once, and then if you try to send the second time, they will do difficult about it. So the servers can be confused technically at the low level in some ways. For example, the database, you have to make sure that you lock the record before sending. Why? Because another process would want to write the information you get back from the government. It would also want to write on that invoice, and then you have a concurrent update. So that's one best practice you can easily follow. There's even a utility method for that. It's the with locked records. You find other ways. In SQL, it's the select for update to make sure that you have ownership of the record and you can write on it after you send. So it's always important that if you send something, write as fast as possible your result in the database, that if something after happens, that it doesn't make your current invoice have the wrong information. One thing that's also important is timeouts. So and timeouts, there is not a lot you can do against it, because when you make a connection to a server, you specify a timeout, and security people, server people will say, look, keep the timeout short to not lock up resources. And there you have to do something, because it can always happen that you send something to the government, the server thinks it's okay, but you have never received the response. You don't know that it was okay. But you do know that you had a timeout exception, and then you know that you can do then you can do some actions. Some APIs have a possibility to have an endpoint where you can check if the invoice was received correctly or not. Or if you try to send that same invoice, it will give an error. And you can see, I will give some examples. Here, for example, for the Indian EDI, we have, it's connected to our IAP proxy, but then also to the Indian service. And there we have a JSON RPC method that we use on IAP account that's called from that method, and it will, if it's the access error includes the timeout, so if it times out, it will give an error. it will not explicitly say this one, but if you try again, the government will react with a 2150. And in that case, you can call another API endpoint to check if the invoice you send corresponds to the one that you have in the government. For example, for Saudi Arabia, you have an order. There it works a bit different. Suppose you get a timeout, as it does some chaining, and in the case it will put accepted true. In that case, it will keep the index because you need to recheck if that index was sent or not, because the next invoice that you send, you need to know if it needs to use that invoice as the previous invoice or not. Another example is from Hungary. Hungary has been contributed by a Hungarian partner, largely Xabatot. And what's special about it is that it's a two-steps process. So it's not because we try to generalize certain things that we cannot have EDIs that have another process. For example, what happens here is that you send it in the first step, you get a timeout. You can check already the second step to see if it was accepted correctly or not. But you have to do it after 6 minutes, apparently. So when we are talking about electronic invoicing, the user also does something, and we wanted to make it as easily as possible that if you create your own electronic invoicing for your favorite country, that you can easily add it in the interface. Before we thought, yeah, the ideal would be that if you confirm the invoice after, it sends it in background immediately, and you don't have to worry about it. More and more, we are sure that the user wants to be in control, and it happens of the moment you send the invoice to the customer. There's also, you can still do multiple invoices at the same time. If you select multiple, it will also work in background. But if you do one, you follow up the process. And something that is important is to check if you need to send before the generation of the PDF, because if you send an invoice to the customer, you send a PDF. It's important, you need to see if, do I need it before, for example, because in your PDF you need a barcode that is the result of what you send to the government, because it's in the response. Or maybe you want to do it after, because you want to put the PDF in the XML, for example. So both things can happen. Adding something in that wizard is actually quite simple. There is one abstract class that is called account_movesend, and you can easily just override some method. So you get all extra EDIs. It will see if the Indian EDI is still applicable, and upon that you will have that checkbox that you saw here in this previous screen. You can also add alerts and the extra attachment as for the placeholder and so on. And then you have the call where I was talking about. Another thing you can do is import invoices. And for that importing of invoices, we have also have some things in place. So there are two methods. One method is basically the get EDI decoder, and another that calls another method, or that has another method that also uses another method. So there's one method that checks what type of invoice it is, and then you can say in the get EDI decoder method, you can pass your method, and that method will handle your XML. So it's very easy to add your own import format here as well. Generally, when we work on electronic invoices, it's not just descending. In most cases, there is a lot of fields that need to be added, often even on product and partner. What we do in a multi-company environment, we try to hide those fields in a company that they are not appropriate. So for invoices that have required company ID, for example, that's easy because you know it's for this company. So if that invoice is for that company, I need to show these fields. But there are also some objects like partners that can be shared among companies, and in that case, you have a more elaborate compute field that you can use, and with that, because it also checks the contacts if you have activated that company or not, if you should show the field or not. If you have really a lot of fields that you need to add, you can use the actionable errors widget, which allows, for example, if you are in an invoice and you miss on the products plenty of fields, it allows you to put a warning, and on the warning you go to an action which gives you all the products that are wrong, and you can easily edit them in the list. And then we come to a more complicated, more technical subject, the taxes. From previous version already, we try to support global rounding more and more. So in version 19, global rounding is the king and is being used in practically all the localizations. And what we had before is that often people used round per line, which said that so per line the tax amount would be rounded. Here not. What we want in global rounding is that we sum up all the base amounts per tax, we apply the tax rate, and we only round everything in the very end. This is a bit contradictory because a lot of electronic invoicings still want the amounts per line. So what we did is a lot of helper methods. You can take your invoice lines, you can convert them to a dictionary. With that dictionary, you have to call 2 or 3 methods for the moment, more for technical reason, but it's like one and the same to round, to apply all the roundings, so that it can give to the EDI numbers that make sense on the line level as well. And what you see here is that for example, you will group. So once you do the rounding, you have to group them per line and and in most EDIs you also need to give a summary per invoice. And so you have these helper methods that do that. For example, this last method in the Egypt EDI makes it that already makes the JSON that will be sent finally to the government. Okay. So there is this utility method is applied in practically all the electronic invoicings in Odoo. So there is one format in electronic invoicing that is used a lot, and that's UBL. Not all use it, but a lot do. And there are also so many customizations of UBL that we decided that we shouldn't render it in QWeb anymore, but we should render it just in the Python, because then it's easier to inherit a method, and that one thing that you want to change, you can easily do it. To generate one, you can just, so it's all in the account EDI UBL CII module, and you can inherit from that class. It's a classic inheritance which allows you to change the behavior in the child class. And so with export invoice, you just call that method. You don't even need to override it. You export all your data. It uses a little bit of a special notation. It uses dictionary to XML because in XML you can have attributes on the tag, and you also have the content. And so in order to build that dictionary, you can see an example here. You need to kind of build it up in a certain way. Yeah, the text is actually the content of your tag. And UBL is also used for imports. For example, here in the Turkish EDI, you will find that there is a new UID that we want to store, and we have a new field here that we where we put it, and that is just overridden just like that. So these are already kind of powerful things that we can reuse, because you have UBL and those taxes. If you use UBL and you just need to change 2 or 3 things, it's really handy to use what's already in place in Odoo. And it's also, but it's not just invoices. So you can. The thing with POS orders is that in the beginning we just made before we just made POS order an invoice, and then we send the invoice because we had the logic on the invoice. But accountants don't like to have all those accounting entries for every POS order. So what we decided in a lot of localizations already is to send everything from the POS order itself. And then, of course, you have like shared logic between them. You saw the logic about the taxes. Well, the thing is, the taxes on the lines are converted into a dictionary. But if it comes from invoices or POS orders, both can be converted into that dictionary. And then you can, so you share that logic between POS orders and invoices. So you have a little, so what we usually do, we duplicate the fields anyway on POS order and invoice, but there is some logic that we can share. Sometimes we decide to create an extra document class because you want to, because the attachment, it's like a glorified attachment where you add some things on that, where you add the state and so on, and that way it allows, for example, if you need it, to have a history. For example, for Spain, you need to, for the new Verifactu, you need to, every call you do, you need to register it yourself as well. And good news, there is a POS EDI UBL module in the making for the moment for Colombia, but the advantage is that you will be able to apply this for everything as well. For everything else, yeah. So, and now you can go even further. You can apply it on sale orders and use the same logic, because those baselines from the tax calculation, you can take them from sales order as well. By the way, on invoices, the same tax calculation is used for doing the sync dynamic lines for between the accounting entry and the invoice, which is the same. But you see here that the same methods come back. So we also have a get EDI encoder for the import on the sale order. For the moment, we have just the sale EDI UBL module, but I'm kind of hoping that one day we will be able to exchange sale orders and purchase orders on the Peppol network as well. So the same holds for purchase orders, except that there we also have an export functionality for the moment. So you see that the tax calculation is reused on invoice, POS orders, purchase orders, sale orders, and even if there are other strange things. And UBL can follow that same path. Yeah. Okay, if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First question, is there any drawbacks of not using QA?
I'm not hearing you. I think you...
Sorry, this is not working? Sorry?
Oh, yeah, just...
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Is there any drawback of not using QWeb anymore?
Well, what I like about QWeb and the other localizations, and I think we should keep it in the other localizations, is that you see very quickly what's the structure of the XML. That's something that you lose a bit with UBL. But on the other hand, in a lot of tests and a lot of test data and so on, you will find UBLs to verify what is happening. So that's a bit the disadvantage, but there is so many customizations into the UBL of every localization wanting to change a lot, that it became more practical to do that in this other way.
Okay. In a multi-company setup with multiple localizations, what would be your recommendations?
Well, to apply what I was saying, so to hide the fields when they don't apply. Already in, for example, in the count, move, send, and so on, you will see that there is if it's applicable. So there it will check if the company that you're working, that invoice is in, for example, has the right, has the country corresponding to the field.
Yes, okay. Specific question for partners. How can the partners contribute?
Yeah, partners have contributed in very different ways already. Like for Hungary, it was almost an entire electronic invoicing. Sometimes for us, the most difficult part is knowing what is about the functionality, is knowing what is needed for the user. That is quite the most difficult part. And yeah, otherwise, if there are people who want to contribute, yeah, we are of course very interested, but we will also try to make it go into try to reuse as much, make it user friendly, and so on.
Okay. Another small questions. Which version for the availability of this part? Invoicing. 18, 19?
Well, what I was showing was of course 19.
Yes.
But but a lot of things like the account move sent is there for some versions already. Yeah, I don't know if the UBL, that's new. The change from QWeb to that's new and V19.
That should answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No more questions? Everything yours. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.